Welcome to episode 0 of Atomica Academia. I am Atomica. I am an English student out of New England. I am concentrating on rhetoric, but I do have a love of literature, of art, music, and above all else, video games. A lot of the media I intend to cover will be video game based, but I'm going to go into some classics too. And one of the things I'd really love to do is provide study guides for students looking for inspiration for essays. We're going to start with Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake, a book I've recently discovered this year and truly fallen in love with. Now, the story and themes of this novel are vast. There's a lot we're going to go into, but we're going to try to keep it nice and concise. The main story, as it's presented to us, is the character Snowman, who is the last human on Earth, tends to these people called Crakers, who were a result of the apocalypse. The book goes into it much more. Hopefully, if you found this video, you've already read the book, you know where this goes. He thinks back on the world that was lost in his place in the post-apocalyptic world. Now, we are going to be going into this, so hopefully you've read this book. Spoilers ahead. This is a study guide. This is not a Wikipedia article. This isn't going to give you all the information. You're still going to have to do your own reading. You're still going to have to do your own research. I'm just trying to push you in the right direction. The themes of this book go into genetic engineering, STEM, how the world is affected by corporate power pushing technology versus the environment versus art versus media. It concentrates on man-made environmental collapse, not only in the corporate world and how concentrating on technology is destroying the world, but in the events that lead to the apocalypse as well. There's a strong push of technology versus humanity. The book pushes the world of the book, not the book itself, but the world that the book encompasses pushes this desire for technology and for economic reasons, like build this stuff so we can make money off it, build these creatures, build these drugs, build these worlds so we can make money at the cost of art and personality and individuality and life. There's this push for longevity, but no life in that longevity. Let's find these cures that allow people to live longer, but to what end? Yeah, these people are getting a chance to live, but at what cost? There are a range of characters and groups within this novel. Our main protagonist is Snowman / Jimmy. You read the book, hope you know exactly why there's a dichotomy, why that's the same character. Snowman is our current timeline character, and Jimmy is his personality before the apocalypse, what he thinks back on these events that he really thinks on. Jimmy and Snowman are a great character to you can really build so much around him for an essay. We'll get into that a little bit later. Oryx is another, on the other hand, is a really undervalued character. I've seen a lot of writing on this, and she seems to be really skipped over. So I think there's a lot that can be going on with her, like doing an essay on Oryx. There's a lot that I don't think has been analyzed properly there. A lot of good errors and go there. She is this background character for most of the novel who comes into the forefront after the characters are into the professional world, and I think her placement in the story really creates some really good tension and really good drama, but she's also a really good representation of the world outside of what Jimmy and his best friend Crake deal with. Crake is the antagonist of the book. He's Jimmy's best friend and his opposite. And that eventually leads to a conflict that ends the world. Corpse to Corpse is one of many mega corporations that Crake ends up dealing with, and they are very controlling. They're very technologically minded, and they're very authoritarianist. We see them and other mega corporations like that in charge of the charters. The charters are these upper end communities that are really enclosed. They're really provided for. They do tend to have a upper middle class, if not upper class lifestyle, but it's very much so, what have you done for me lately? You're expected to excel in education in STEM fields for profit, and as long as you can do that, you can find a future for yourself. The plebeians are more where the everyday person ends up. It's very impoverished. There's less resources. There's less stuff, but there's more life in their life. There's more violence. There's more aggression. There's more risks, but there's also this separation from this economic powerhouse that allows for a lot more growth and a lot more enjoyment of existence, or at least, maybe not enjoyment, but at least acknowledgement that existence has emotion. Then we have the Crakers. The Crakers are a creation of Crake's, and they are his solution to the problem of humanity destroying the environment. They are a biological creation that's meant to be devoid of all emotion, all artistic ability, and they are Crake's hope to continue humanity in a new form. Whether that succeeds or not. So, like I said, I want this to be a guide for essays. So we have some points of interest. Character relations between Jimmy, Oryx, Crake, all three of them individually. The way the three of them interact with each other definitely is fertile ground for essays. There's so much you can write in how they contrast each other, complement each other, work with each other, fight against each other. How Jimmy becomes Snowman because of his relationship with them is very, very important. How he treats Oryx and Crake after the apocalypse, as far as the Crakers go, is very, very fertile ground for a lot of really good essays. The use of and loss of language and its importance to society. We see this more with Snowman, and we see it with Jimmy with his career, but we see it with Snowman looking back on language. One of my favorite questions, and a lot of people's favorite questions in the book, is what is toast? Just that one chapter alone, where he's discussing how to explain toast to the Crakers. If you can't get an essay out of that, I don't know what to tell you. The book's main push is definitely the relationship between STEM and the world. And it doesn't villainize STEM, to be clear. It villainizes how corporate greed can abuse STEM. And the dangers of STEM being used only for profit at the cost of mankind. You can go into what type of STEM is important, how technology can be abused, how corporate sects have been increasing their take in it over, in the book, how, again, art, science, and literature and language and relationships and individuality is being lost to this corporate greed over science and technology. You can go into the effects of memory that Snowman endures. Just on a psychological profile, what Snowman goes through the novel could definitely build a really interesting psychological profile. And I think there's a lot there that a psych student could take and really analyze, as far as like looking back through memory for a character that went through trauma and has been in a survival mode for an unknown amount of time. We can definitely look into speculative fiction as a whole, which is, in this case, is being shown through an apocalyptic dystopia, but to look at it as a mode of writing could really create an interesting analysis. Margaret Atwood herself has articles that she's written on speculative fiction. She's done interviews and she's done TED Talks on it that can really give a lot of ground to speculative fiction in essay writing. Lastly, I'd say individual examinations of Jimmy, Snowman, Oryx, Crake. Yeah, their interconnections are definitely important, but each individually can also be really broken down. Jimmy as a whole, Snowman as a whole, them as one individual with two personas. Oryx's situation could really be brought forward to analyze a lot of things that are wrong with the world now, as well as in her own story. And like I said, in my research, it was so hard to find anyone really digging into her story. So I think if there's anything, if you really wanted to stand out and really do something new, I think Oryx would really be someone to concentrate on, because some people have written about her, but people tend to concentrate on Jimmy, Snowman, and then Crake. So anyone who wanted to really look at this from a feminist lens, or just in general, a very individually interesting character, Oryx is out there. Go write about her. She's there. Find some stuff. It's great. You can really, I could write another full essay on her alone. My essay, on the other hand, that I chose to write for this, I should say, is on Crake. I really concentrated on what he does in the novel and how he reacts to the world around him really pushes this narrative of what can be really wrong with a world run by corporate greed. I was able to analyze not just what he did, but why he did it, what drove him to take the actions he did, and not justifying them, because what he did was horrible. But you can see that the things that drove him were also horrible. What was done to his family, what was done to his friends, what he was forced to do to be successful in life, what he was able to see done to Oryx and others. And I think there's still like a lot to write on him. You can take him as this tragic hero or this honorable intellectual who's quite literally a lunatic, in the veins of Dr. Frankenstein. And it's so interesting to see what you can do with him. Overall, there's so much in this novel that you can write about, and there's 100 other angles I haven't even touched on. There are side characters in this book that you could write about that would fill an essay with ease. An art student could definitely look at one of Jimmy's ex-girlfriends, whose name unfortunately escapes me at the moment, who literally does art exhibits by taking animals, putting them out in the desert in shape of words, and having vultures eat them so that the bones create these words out in the desert. Just that alone, I could see an art student getting a 10-page paper analyzing her work. So it's really easy to write with this book if you try. If you guys do go out there and you do read this, enjoy it because it is a good book, but if you do have to write essays about it, I hope you find some inspiration in the book. I hope this helps you think of things to write about. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you subscribe if you want to see more things like this. The comment section below is definitely a place for you guys to ask questions, get some information. Obviously keep it civil. This book and most books can create controversy, but this is a place for academia, for it to grow together and help each other. So I hope that's the community we can build here. I hope this helps you out, and I hope you get some A's in your future. Keep the P's and P's.